Hey there. Sweet Saturday afternoon to you. I am going to play some music while folks are showing up. And as you're arriving, if you'd be so kind as to just introduce yourself so I know who's here with me and tell me where you're coming from, that would be awesome. And we'll start with that. All right. I'm going to go right on ahead here and share a little piece of music. I'm going to speak into this, why I'm playing music and what it means and why in the world I would do just this. And we will go with that. All right. Here we go. Welcome, welcome. Introduce yourselves. Hey, Susie. Ready for Pilgrim? I bet you are. All right, here we go. This is a favorite song of mine. This guy play. It's an oldie but goodie. As you're arriving, introduce yourselves, and that will do. You are the light of the world. All right. You are the light. It's time, isn't it? So shine, shine, shine where you are. You are the light. Welcoming you. Introduce yourself. Tell me who's here with me. Tell me where you're coming from. You are a candle in the dark. Take off my hat. Messy hair and all. No problem, eh? So shine, shine, shine where you are. You are a candle in the dark. Linda, North Carolina, welcome. You are a city on a hill. You are a city on a hill. So shine, shine, shine where you are. There we go, you're arriving. So I also know that you are coming to me from all sorts of other places, meaning not just here on YouTube, but you're also on Facebook. And I know that I'm not going to be able to necessarily see all the messages because I wanted to stream actively to a number of different locations. So here we are. And so I'm going to go ahead and get us started as everyone is showing up. And there we go. Cecily, I'm so glad you're here with us as well. I think it's your exotic name that always makes me think that you're in Portugal. But we know you're not in Portugal because you've told me you're in Portland. All right, so here we go. I'm going to make sure that I have my video there. I'm seeing others here. I'm seeing, okay, no worries, Terry. You'll have the link. It's the same link on YouTube. You'll be able to go back to it if you're watching it on YouTube, and I've posted it all over the place. So you'll be able to find it, and we'll go from there. So I'm just so grateful that you're here. I'm grateful you all are here. And I know there'll be others showing up. As you're arriving, please just drop in your name. Tell us where you are from, and where you're coming from, where you're coming to us from. That would be awesome. And I said I just took my hat off. I've been out on the mountain this morning, which is going to relate to what I speak to you about today. I'm going to change my seat. That's another piece you're going to hear me speak unto. You know, I could have totally showered up and made myself all pretty, but I'm coming to you real and raw because I feel like there are priorities, right? And those priorities are all about the ways in which, hey, Andrea, sweet love to you. These priorities are all about how we essentially find restoration in our lives. And it's not going to be so much about, we have a resident fly here who's going to be joining us as well, it appears. So it's not so much about perfection. In fact, I think that there's enough pressure and perfection that is driving us, especially in social media and in these sorts of environments. And so I'm just here to be really real and raw with you. Like I said, I have my baseball cap on because I've been up on the mountain. I did throw some lip gloss on, and I'm just right here with you. So today is about restoration. It's about rest and restoration. And as we enter into this, right, resident fly, as we enter into this, what I want to really speak into, first of all, is why this is important. And I am going to just take a step back. I got a really lovely message this morning from someone, because as you all know, I've been talking about Pilgrim. I'll say more about Pilgrim at the end of this, but this will be fully standalone. I'm not here to sell you Pilgrim. I'm here to give you as much value as I can in our time together. And I had sent out a promotion for Pilgrim that said, hey, if you have any questions or if you just want to check in, here's my phone number, go ahead and text me. And I got this lovely text from a student, a follower perhaps. And she said two things. She said, as much as I'd really love to join Pilgrim, at this time, I cannot even imagine having the bandwidth to do it. And then she went on and talked about, all the things going on in her life, et cetera, et cetera. And so, of course, this fly is going to harass us for the duration of our time together. I'm going to just try to get him out of here. Probably just land on my nose. So it's probably because I smell so good because I've been up on the mountain. Anyway, all right, coming back, reel myself back in. The two pieces about what she said that are so potent and are pertinent to us is I can't even imagine having the time, right, to do this, to do a program, to take better care of myself. And then the other piece is as much as I would love to do this. So if there's any part of you that's like, oh, as much as I would love to take better care of myself, I can't imagine doing that. I want to speak to that first, because the truth of it is, and many of you have heard me quote Mel Robbins in this. Mel Robbins has this really beautiful way of just cutting right to the chase if you don't follow her. And she said, nobody's coming for you. Nobody's going to come and get you out of bed. Nobody's going to come and put your tennies on your feet and put your exercise pants on and push you out the door and make you go on that run. Nobody's going to come and get you, make you your smoothie. It's all you. It's all you. And we fall away from so many of those practices because we learned that we had to put other people first. We learned that we had to even put our professors first when we were in school. We learned we had to put our children first because, well, at first, of course, you have to, because if you don't, they're totally dependent upon you. So it's a different animal. But then when those things start to fall away, or when we feel like we have a little bit more agency in our lives, we don't necessarily always exercise that agency. So I want to say first that if at all there's a part of you that's saying, gosh, as much as I'd love to take better care of myself, I just don't know how. Don't worry about the how. Worry about the fact, or concern yourself with the fact that you want to take better care of yourself. That's number one. Then number two is recognize that the pressure that we feel when there's a lot of stress on us because we're working and we've gone back to school and we've got a kid getting married and there's a remodel in our bathroom or whatever all the things are, that those things actually, those stressors require that we are well resourced. And I'm going to say something else that she shared, and that is that we sometimes go, well, I feel really strong, like I feel strong in my body. And I'm here to say there are 4 pillars that we need to focus our attention on when we are talking about resourcing ourselves. And all of this has to do with rest and restoration. So number 1, it's the body, the physical body, this vessel, the skin bag, tending to it, of course, through food, through exercise, through proper rest. Those are the big things. We also know that emotionally, that one of the greatest markers of health has to do with how comfortable and how peaceful and content we are in our relationships. So the emotional component is very much part of us being able to resource ourselves. So we can't just push that aside and just be healthy physically. right? And also there's a dance between the physical and the emotional. And when our emotional vitality starts to diminish, one of the things that frequently happens is we start to fall off of the wagon in physical ways. We reach for more late night television or internet or Netflix. We reach for an evening glass of wine. We push ourselves, even reaching for things like extreme sports or taking ourselves to our physical limits, which may or may not be in our best interest as we are looking for internal restoration and resourcing. So there's a dance between the physical and the emotional. Then there's the mental. There's the mental component, being mentally stimulated, being mentally supported, being able to express ourselves and to be held in the presence of individuals who can both see us and support us and also recognize our humanity. So it's not about whether or not you fall off the wagon. It's about how quickly you get back on. So one of the things that I say in Pilgrim is, how's this show up in your life, right? What's happening now? How's this show up in your life and how's that working for you? Right? So if you're feeling tension, if you're not digesting food very well, if there's an emotional relationship that you have that keeps sort of nagging you on the inside, the question becomes like, how is this pressure and this stress showing up in my life? And how's it working for me? Right? What's happening now? What am I noticing and feeling? How is it showing up in my life and how's it working for me? Hi, sweet Jody. That's my sister. That's my sister in Minnesota. So I want to remind us that there are these 4 pillars that are all equally important: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And spiritual is about recognizing that even though life is hard, that there's something bigger at play that we might not quite understand. You can call it what you want. I love how my teacher Key calls it the big zucchini in the sky. And it could be nature, right? One of my deep and spiritual practices is to just lie under the clouds, sit back and watch the clouds pass, because it reminds me that just as those clouds are passing, so too do life experiences. Hey, Denise. So too do those life experiences. And so too do my thoughts and the flu and whatever it is that's coming my way. So these are the 4 primary pillars that I really want to speak into today: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. But the way that I want to enter into those in relationship to restoration and rest, right? The word restoration and rest come from the same root. They both settle into rest. Now, we are not living in restful times, if you haven't gotten the memo. Like, we clearly are not in what feel like restful times. We are in times that through the yogic tradition, we actually call this age of about 4,000 years. We call this Kali Yuga, and that translates into the age, you ready for this? The age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Quarrel and hypocrisy. And the more that I pay attention to that, the more I think maybe there's some truth to that. At the very least, we are in an age where there's a great deal of separation. There's a great deal of conflict. There's a great deal of unhealed trauma, which results in day-to-day drama, like things like road rage and fights in Congress and crazy carjackings at Chick-fil-A or whatever. There's just stuff happening all around us. And the more people that there are on the planet, the less space that there is for us to take. And we're also beginning to see the negative impacts in body, mind, and heart and spirit, essentially, of excessive technology. So we're becoming sort of these voyeurs where we leave our bodies and enter into our devices to receive hormonal stimuli and biochemical positive charge. But the struggle with that is it's not actually the same as it was 100 years ago. So let me just speak to that. So 100 years ago, my ancestors didn't have cell phones, right? Duh. And they probably had animals, livestock. They probably had yards and very likely did not have mowing lawnmowers, right? They didn't have lawnmowers. They might not have had tractors. They might have still had a buggy, a horse and buggy. So they had a horse whose hooves need to be trimmed. They had a wagon or a buggy whose wheels needed to be repaired. So when there were stressors, the immediate response in the person was to get productive, not as a stress response, and not as a coping mechanism, but literally as a way in which to survive. Like if I want to go buy sugar and flour, I have to have a cart and horse that I can take to do that. So I have to trim or file the horse's hooves, and I have to make sure that the buggy is in good working order or the cart's in good working order to do that. I am the woman of the house, so I'm going to be grinding flour. I'm going to be making bread. I'm going to be shucking corn. I'm going to be doing all these things. And I am here to say that one of the reasons that you love the summer so much in comparison to the winter is because it is a natural and organic daily practice for you to be A, outside in the sun, and B, moving. And those things are so good for your skin, your hair, your digestive system, your body's ability to sleep. And I'm going to speak into these things. Now, I'm going to just, in all transparency, I don't have anything planned for you today. I just know that there are some really key anchoring pieces that I want to leave you with because these are game changers. And I don't feel like enough women in particular, but folks in the world really know about these things and know how to turn on what is not currently activated in our own immune system, in our own digestive system, in our own bodies. So I want to speak into that. So 100 years ago, naturally, your body was both being forced through survival mechanisms to produce biochemicals that make you feel good, that improve digestion, that align you with the circadian rhythms and the circadian rhythms. So circadian rhythms are changing every 40 to 47 minutes in our bodies, and circadian rhythms are about night and day. We're screwing with that, with electricity and blue light on our devices and sitting up with technology late at night. All of those things are affecting our sleep. And then we're not having the same level of exercise that's positively impacting digestion, immune system function, blood pressure, you name it. Everything's shifting and changing. And then we have foods that are available like flour 365 days a year, or processed foods. Even if they're healthy processed foods, the life force that they provide us goes way down. So I want to speak into those things. All right, so taking a step back, returning to what the message I got earlier today from a dear sweet woman that really got me thinking, and that was, as much as I'd love to do Pilgrim, I can't imagine having the time to do it with all these other things going on. And what strikes me is how important it is that whatever you say to yourself about, as much as I'd like to take better care of myself, I can't imagine having the time to do that given all these other things that are on my plate. And immediately the thing that I do is I'm going to be 52 in just a couple months. So I look back on my life and I go, okay, what didn't work and what worked? So I've got some years under my belt to see what didn't work and what worked. What I know didn't work was looking the other way, pretending that the stress and the tension wasn't going to affect me, or numbing out and dumbing down, turning toward more sugar, more Facebook, more wine. Like those things don't get me where I want to go. What I know does work is, interestingly, surprisingly, the one thing I don't think I have time for. And that is absolutely marbling and weaving into my life the things that make a difference. So, like I said, I haven't washed my hair today. You're getting bedhead and my hair thrown up in these little goofy little pony things at the side of my head. Why? Because it was absolutely imperative to me, regardless of how busy I am today, regardless of all the things that I have to get done, that I got up on that mountain. Because that for me is a game changer. That totally changes my skin. It changes my digestion. It supports me in being able to sleep at night. It supports my self-esteem. It supports, I have no doubt, there is a direct correlation to how much cardiovascular exercise I get and how much joy I experience in my life. So if you're multitasking, come back to me. I want to say that again. There is a direct correlation in my life between how much cardiovascular exercise I get and how much joy I experience in my life. Period. Now, I say that about me personally, but what I can tell you is that what we know about cardiovascular exercise, particularly in natural light, right? Cardiovascular exercise in, yay, Denise, cardiovascular exercise in, sorry, tangent, in relationship to being out in the sun, it has all of the same benefits of an antidepressant with none, zero of the negative effects. Now, I get that when you're depressed, the last darn thing you want to do is exercise. I get that when you're tired and you're stressed out, the last darn thing that you want to do or have the time for is to eat better, to make your own food, to go grocery shopping, to sit and meditate. I get it. But another thing that I have come to learn, and this is an absolute game changer, when I exercise, when I give up sleep to exercise, because I quote unquote don't have time, I have more energy to do all of the things that are meaningful to me. And when I have the energy to do the things that are meaningful to me, I also am more present in the relationships that are the most important to me. I'm more focused, I'm more clear, I'm more intentional, I'm able to let things go more quickly. This is how this works. This is how this works. So if you feel like you don't have the time and the bandwidth, again, I'll circle back to what Mel Robbins says, there's nobody coming for you. Nobody can rearrange your schedule. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that even if it's a 20-minute run, nothing. Like I can sit and waste 20 minutes in a flash. Even if it's putting music on and turning my attention to and listening to something that is going to focus my attention and bring me into a greater sense of presence and vitality, that makes the world of difference to me. So I want you to think about that first. Nobody's coming for you. Nobody's going to get your butt out of bed. And if the first thing you're doing in the morning is reaching for your phone, I am here to say you need to begin to plug your phone in away from your bed. Now, I know that there's all these stories about, but what if my kids call and blah, 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 blah. Tell them to call you and not text you in the event of an emergency. And leave your ringer on. Nobody else is going to call you in the middle of the night. And put your phone in the bathroom, in a closet, in the nearest outlet outside of your door. Turn the ringer up and get it away from your bed. Why? Because those electromagnetic frequencies are causing damage to the way that your brain is functioning. It's rewiring you in ways you do not want to be rewired. We have seen our attention span drop significantly every single year since the research is around since the invent of Facebook alone. As just one option. Here we are. A lot of you are on Facebook with me. I get it. There's a lot of good here. And we got to be really conscious. Why can you not just leave your phone by your bed and turn it off? I'll tell you why. Because you are addicted to it. It is nothing personal. It is biochemical. And if you've ever found yourself reaching for your phone and having your phone in your hand before you think about whether or not you want to use your phone, I'm here to say that is a prime and immediate indication that the addiction has set in. So, if you found yourself being even remotely anxious because you don't know where your phone is, that is an indication of addiction, right? Yeah. So, all right, grandchildren are up. So I'll catch this in the juicy replay. Absolutely. Yep. Perfect. So what I want to speak into and what I want to offer in and through all of this is I want for you to remember that we are looking at physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual resourcing. And my hands are doing this on purpose. I want you to have a well full so that when work gets more stressful, when your kids need your attention, when the heart attack of your beloved happens, like I know I'm speaking into all these things I know have happened in your lives, when the remodel occurs, when the holidays come, that you have a well that is full from which to draw. The only way I can tell you that I know how to do that and that that works is to enter into your own life and to remember nobody's coming for you and make tiny little shifts. Tiny little shifts. So there is that. And so now I'm going to step back and speak into the rest and restoration as it relates more specifically to brain function, because this is huge. Like I said, we are not living in a time that is restful. These are not restful times. These are chaotic times. And it's even chaotic in ways that we don't see. They're just hitting us. I'm going to give you two examples. Let's change my seat again, because this is a practice of self-care right here. Like I'm seated on the floor, but anytime I'm more concerned that I'm tending to myself than that I look good to you, right? Hence, didn't take a shower, got my mountain hair, did put some lip balm on, like I said, still in my exercise clothes, and I'm making the adjustments in my seat. It's just more important to me that I take good care of me than I concern myself about what you think, right? That's part of the practice. So I'm going to step back and say, we're in chaotic times. And when we are in chaotic times, we have a propensity to operate from the limbic stem of the brain. And I'm here to say that social media, the internet, the pace and the race at which this world is running and is moving, and the intensity of access to information and chaos and media and stimulation and story all across the board, and the pressures that be, all of it has resulted in us spending more time living in the limbic stem of the brain. So what does that look like? Now, you've heard about some of these things already. You've heard about fight and flight. Like when we were kids, that was it. It was just like you'd go to psychology class and it'd be fight or flight. There weren't all these other things. Those other things were still there, but we're seeing them much more predominantly now. So what are those other things? Those other things are, so we have fight, which is you go after it, you fight, you flee, meaning you run. So I'm either going to attack or I'm going to run away, right? Offense, defense, posturing, or defense, offense, posturing, right? I'm going to fight, flee, freeze, meaning I just boom, drop. Totally freeze, paralyze. Fight, freeze, flee, right? Fawn. Fawn is when we put a smile on our face. Somebody says something or does something. We don't really know what to do with it. We know we can't attack. So we sort of smile and act like it's not a huge deal when it's actually affecting our nervous system. It's affecting us deeply, but we're so shocked by something that it just throws us into this state of disintegration because the way in which that we're responding is not in alignment with what just happened. So fight, freeze, fawn, flee. And the last one I'm going to speak into is it's fornicate. But it's not just about sex. But I will say it's one of the reasons that we've seen the pornography industry and sex trafficking and violations in the area of sexuality and sex crimes go way up. We'll just leave it at that. Because it is a stress response. But you could also place in that same category in this day and age, we could also place things like over shopping, right? Any sort of addictive behavior that we fall into, right? So yes, it's specific in its description of sexuality because it's in a movement and a release of energy, but it's greater than that. We're trying to move energy in all sorts of ways. Overeating, over shopping, becoming addicted to change and transition and transformation and next. What's next? Can't sit still, can't sit still, can't sit still. So all of these things are limbic stem activities. They're survival mechanisms. And when those survival mechanisms are at play in our lives, here's what's not firing. Your immune system is not firing unless it is overfiring. We'll just leave it at that for simplicity. Unless it's overfiring. Autoimmune conditions, right? Rheumatic conditions. It's showing up. It's not showing up in terms of digestion. It's not showing up in terms of restfulness. So when we're freezing, we're not resting, we're exiting. When we're fawning, we're not resting, we're exiting. We're disassociating and disconnecting. We are largely living in the limbic stem of the brain. That is the default. Now, it's a powerful part of the brain. It's a survival aspect of the brain. It has great value for us, but we don't want to live in that place. We actually do much better, are much healthier, are much more peaceful, are much more joyful, and are much more connected to others when we're living in the neocortex of the brain, which we don't know as much about. So think lizard brain, right? Where all it is about survival. And the whole reason that Starbucks has been so successful over the course of my lifetime, perhaps yours too, is because we are driving in that place and driving from that place of limbic stem activity. Now, when you need to get something done, that's where you want to be. When you need to escape something, that's where you want to be. When there's a million things that need to get done and you're trying to navigate and negotiate and say, you go there and you do this, and now we got to take care of this, you want that active. But we can't live from that place because it slowly and steadily diminishes our resiliency, and it slowly and steadily empties the well. What we say in Ayurveda is your ojas, your life force, your juice, your sort of juiciness that allows you to sort of, move in and through things goes way down. Like when a wheel needs to be greased, right? Or when your blender starts to smoke because it can't handle the load. We become like that. So therefore, circling back, nourishing ourselves physically, nourishing ourselves mentally, nourishing ourselves emotionally, nourishing ourselves spiritually. These are key factors. They don't have to be huge things, but there are some anchors that I'll speak about. Okay, so itchy nose, get all the stuff. So here we are, limbic stem of the brain, survival. It's not going to allow you to digest well. It's not going to allow your immune system to function well. It's not going to allow for you to be potently resistant to what's coming your way, and also digest and move beyond what we go through in our lives. Deaths and divorces and losses, empty nesting, losses of children, losses of jobs, burned down houses, right? All accidents, tragedies, all these things. We need to be well resourced to get through those things too. And I'm talking about learning how to swim when the waters are calm-ish, not waiting for your house to start on fire before you learn how to use your fire extinguisher, before you learn what you need to do. But instead, you're essentially creating for yourself mechanisms to keep the well full and to keep the water clear and pure, keep your resources available and at your fingertips so you can use them and then refill, use them and refill. Because the neocortex, right, whereas the limbic stem of the brain is about getting things done, being single focused, driving ahead, escaping, moving through trauma, moving through tragedy. That's what this is about. Moving through is different than processing. The neocortex is all about the things that your body does when it's sleeping, ideally. Things like finding, dropping into alpha sleep patterns, deep sleep, into REM sleep, where your body is able to recover. It's able to rebuild tissues that have been broken down, whether it's brain or nerve or muscle. Right? I'm just going to take a step back and say through the yogic lens, like things like Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's. Those are all diseases of living too long, spending too much time in the limbic stem of the brain, tremors, body tremors, where everything just starts to short out, right? Short wire. We don't have control over everything, but what we know is we have way more control than we ever dreamed possible, even 10 years ago. And all the work around epigenetics and being able now to literally, I'm waiting patiently for my test to come so that I can do some SNP testing to look at my own DNA and to look at my own epigenetics and whether or not I personally, in my DNA, coded in my DNA from the moment I was born, if I'm high risk of Alzheimer's, if I'm high risk for cancer, if I'm high risk for PTSD, not for the trauma, but different people have different ways that they move through traumas and dramas. So neocortex, here's the beauty of the neocortex. When the neocortex is active, we see potential. We see possibility. We digest our food well. We digest life's experiences. We're able to sleep longer and better and more restfully and to wake up more restored, more rested. Inflammation in our body goes way down. All the inflammatory markers, C-reactive protein being one, it goes down. So when you crawl out of bed in the early morning, your body's not achy, breaky, hurting with every step you take, but you're ready and excited for the day, right? This is neocortex activity. This is what we're just really learning more about. This is why we know that meditation works. This is why not just successful people, but happy people are happier when they meditate, because it's lighting up the neocortex of the brain, right? So you've got stress response and relaxation response. right? This is what we're going for. Stress response and relaxation response. We want to live more frequently from the relaxation response. And we want to access stress response when we need it. And here's the thing I'm going to tell you. There is no kid running in front of a vehicle, right? Or there's no child that needs to be saved that your body is not going to save. Your body's going to kick into stress response and into survival when it needs to, period. It's not going to be way too chilled out and relaxed because you've been hanging out in your meditation and on your yoga mat too much, or going for walks, or spending time in your garden, which I know is something some of you do and positively affects you, right? So this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about, is how do I live more from the relaxation response? So right now I'm getting messages, excuse me, I have this new phone I haven't figured out how to use exactly. So I'm getting messages that you're hearing ding in that are for the Sweat Lodge tomorrow that I have here, which is one of the ways that I drop into relaxation response. What is it about the Sweat Lodge that works? It absolutely drops me into darkness, into music, into drum beat, into sweating, into community, into emotional release. That's what it's all about. So that's neocortex. When I spend more time cultivating relaxation response, when I spend more time cultivating relaxation response, what I find, beyond the shadow of a doubt, what I find is that my blinders expand and I see more possibility. I see more potential. I see more connection. I see more greatness, more ease, more joy. I feel and experience all of that more completely. So how do we go there, right? So how do we rest and restore, right? So I want to speak into this because there's a few pieces, right? When we look at our lives and we say, what's not working? I'm going to simplify it. It's not about, well, there's too much television in my life. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm drinking too much wine. Okay. There's all these things that are not working. Why are they not working? They're not working in your life because you're using them as coping mechanisms, and they're a short-term fix for a long-term struggle, and they're going to deplete you. So because of this, the work is, what can I do, since nobody's coming for me, what can I do to make tiny little changes? So some of you heard me say, perhaps in a post I made earlier today, about the two ways that we really fall off the deep end, that we totally fall off the wagon, is we have a catastrophic or huge event in our lives. Could even be winning the lottery. For many, that's actually catastrophic in the end, right? A catastrophic event. Or we slowly and steadily make tiny little negative decisions that disintegrate us and move us away from our joy, from our vitality, from our own life force. Now, the good news about that is the way to get back, the way to gain our balance, to gain our vitality, regain our connection and purpose, all of it. The way that we do that essentially is by reversing that and just adding tiny little things. So that's what I want to speak into, right? Because what our objective is to get out of stress response into relaxation response, to recognize that for a while, maybe the first month, which is a fraction of a lifetime, you might be sort of getting your feet underneath you and trying to find balance in your life. But know that what you're doing is you're filling a well. You're filling up your reserves so that when life happens, when the holidays come, right? When that inevitable phone call, whether it's a diagnosis or a lost job or a kid moving back in with you or a drug problem in the family, whatever it is, you're well resourced to deal with it. That's key. That is key. So We're going to talk about making tiny little changes, what those look like. So I'm going to speak about the physical ones, the mental ones, the emotional ones, and the spiritual ones. Because ultimately, when we take good care of ourselves truly, what ends up happening is the people in our lives benefit because we short wire less. We're less cloudy or murky in terms of our connection to others. We're able to receive more, and we're able to be fully engaged really in our lives. And so that's what we're going for. All right, so I'm just going to throw a few examples out. I want us not to worry so much about what we're not doing right, and instead see the ways in which that we can turn our attention toward the sun, the way that a sunflower turns its attention toward the sun. Turn your attention toward the light and let the shadows fall behind. In Pilgrim, we say, fill your life with the higher things and let that which doesn't serve you fall away. So I'm not going to spend all this time and energy on what's not working. I'm going to spend my time and energy on fortifying my nervous system and on turning my attention to the ways in which that I can become more resilient from the inside out. There's this thing, one other little tangent, and then we'll talk specifics. And you know all these specifics. There's no rocket science here. One other thing, there's something called myelin sheathing. Myelin sheathing is essentially, as we are under high levels of stress, our nerve endings start to get frayed and they're raw. So if you've ever had that in your mouth where you have a cavity or you have something going on where the enamel's worn away or something, and you bite down and you're like, God, it's just raw. It's raw to sensation. It's raw to life experiences. It can't take as much. It's less resilient. You don't even want to interact with that part of your mouth. Our nerve endings are the same. Our nerve endings do the same thing. So these practices of cultivating relaxation response and neocortex activity literally heal those nerve endings, create a myelin sheath on the nerve ending so that when somebody drops a book, you go, oh, you don't go, oh my God, right? Just as one tiny example. Or when somebody says something that hurts your feelings, you go, oh, good information. But it doesn't raise your heart rate. It doesn't throw you out of balance. It might just be like a little hiccup and you're back on versus a huge, tumultuous experience, right? So these are really simple things. Physically, get out in nature, ideally in the first 4 hours of daylight. So that's from 7 to 11 a.m. if sunrise is at 7 where you are. The first 4 hours of daylight, get outside. First 4 hours of the day, move your body. Rise with the sun. These are all related. And it's not just about like being the good yogi. It's literally about laying down neurological pathways that align your body to get the most rest and restoration from the nighttime and to be more resourced and more connected to the rhythm of the planet, because that helps you heal. And it also helps you be more productive, more effective, more efficient, more creative, more resourceful, more potent, more impactful, more resilient, all these things we want, right? All these things we want. So the essential thing to think about is, how do I align myself with nature? What am I going to do that? Get that telephone out of there, out of your room, out of your room. Ideally, if you can muster it, and this will be hard for some of you, 2 hours at the end of the day without technology. At first, you're going to feel like a heroin addict. It's really hard. I've done it. It's really hard. 2 hours at night and then 2 hours upon rising without your phone. So I don't have time to be without my phone. I don't buy that. So it's not an issue of time. I can't imagine being without my phone. Okay, but can you imagine being better resourced? Can you imagine how wonderful your body would respond to sleeping better at night? Can you imagine being able to feel and sense the hunger cues and respond to the hunger cues and eat when you're hungry and not when you're not? What does that have to do with telephone use? It has to do with the way that the brain is aligning with the seasons. So physically, we consider that. We also consider eating our largest meal in the middle of the day and not consuming any caffeine after 10 in the morning. None. Zero. No chocolate, no nada. Right? This positively impacts your body's ability to be in alignment with the seasons. And then having a hard shutdown, technology shutdown, that is ideally 2 hours before you go to bed at night. Now, any one of these little things is like a domino that you knock over that's going to affect everything else. You might not be able to do all these things, but you might be able to do some of these things. Now let's talk emotional, right? I didn't say an hour of yoga, although 20-minute yoga practice in the morning for 108 days will rock your world. 13-minute meditation for 108 days will rock your world. It will reprogram your brain. An EEG will show you your brain has changed. This is huge. Emotionally, what do? Emotionally, we want to connect to and resource with music, journaling, right? Ongoing therapy or constantly learning, growing, having a high value of committing yourself to learning and growing and expressing who you are, what's important to you, where you're struggling. Mentally, how do I stimulate myself? How do I learn a new language? How do I go take a salsa class? Or how do I go take belly dancing or clogging? I don't know, something that's going to stimulate your brain and get you thinking, but that you're not just sitting there. Mental activity, you have a mind in your gut too. So mental wellness is not just what's happening between your ears, it's happening in your entire body. Master Gardener, right? Some program or something of that nature. And then spiritually connecting to something that's bigger than you, being of high service, right? Having a practicing and studying yoga, practicing or going deeper into a spiritual practice that you've always been interested in learning more about. This morning, after I got up and did my meditation, because I got up really early, there was an amazing thing on Facebook. I didn't even know that the Dalai Lama was speaking, and I listened to him speak for an hour. The glory of technology to be able to do that, to deepen into a practice and to listen, to find your way. Find someone. YouTube, there's so much on YouTube that's free. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you have any questions, please drop those in the comments. What I want to tell you is, and you know this already, that I'm encouraging you to move in the direction of Pilgrim, that this is how I do this. This is how I started doing it. This is what I still do. We're 8 years running. I know I have pilgrims here with me in this call now who are just hungry for more knowledge and more information and are preparing themselves, right? Linda and Lynn, like getting ready for you guys to come, and Jody to come back into Pilgrim this fall, to do a little yoga and meditation and feel those daily connections and have the teachings at your fingertips and have the yogi style food guide, all of that. So what I want to offer to you today is just for being here live. If you email me, brit@britbsteele.com, I will send you a cookbook, an electronic cookbook. It's one of my favorites. It's called Desserts for Breakfast. I wrote it. I'm actually writing a new cookbook this fall. That's going to be a big fatty with all my recipes. But this is Dessert for Breakfast. And what I love about this is these are desserts that are so good for you, you could eat them for breakfast. And they're so good. Like when people come on retreat here with me, or any retreats I've done over the course of my career leading retreats, folks love my desserts. Key lime pie, but there's no sugar, there's no dairy, there's no wheat. So what is it? It's a high protein, coconut and cashew based, lots of lime, date and walnut, super high omega fatty acids. Like it's just like brain food. And they're the best ever. I have a strawberry ice cream. I have these little things that somebody called in my class and on a retreat called them orgasms. They're little chocolate amaze balls and they're so good. They're actually not the ball. There's amaze balls too. That's another one that's in there. So just by being here today, if you email me, I'll send you that cookbook. It's called Dessert for Breakfast. Just email me and put in the topic, Dessert for Breakfast, and I'll send you the recipe. That's number one, just for being here with me. Number two, if you join Pilgrim today, if you're interested in joining Pilgrim, if you join Pilgrim today, you're going to get dessert for breakfast. You're going to get an entire list of ways in which that you can practice self-care in tiny little bite-size bits. So some of the things I mentioned today, plus a plethora of other options. And you're going to get a mini coaching call with me to help you ground into these teachings and set an intention for yourself for the next 108 days. Right? Yeah. So that's what, Cicely, no, you're good. You're good. You have everything that you need for Pilgrim. Right, Cicely's asking a question about Pilgrim. If I printed the Pilgrim materials from last year, should we print them out again? No, as there are updates, which there are, I'll speak into those specifically and you'll be able to print those out and you don't have to print everything out again. So if you join Pilgrim by tonight, right, by midnight tonight, today, if you join Pilgrim, you will also, so you'll get dessert for breakfast. You'll get a list of self-care practices, a guide for self-care practices. You will also get a startup ritual and an ending ritual. So both day startup rituals, work day startup rituals, work end rituals, and end of day rituals. You'll get that. You'll get the whole course of Pilgrim, which is loaded with meditations and yoga practices, and we start Monday. And you'll get a free coaching session with me. So that's if you sign up for Pilgrim today. You can learn more about that at brittbsteele.com/pilgrim. And that is how this rolls. So I'm super grateful you're here. I'm going to see if there's any other questions or anything else that's alive for you. And otherwise, I wanted to keep this under an hour. I appreciate you being able to enter back into your day. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to make myself some lime water, and then I'm getting a massage. And I'm going to do some organizing and cleaning. And I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope that you're able to understand a little bit more about how the limbic stem of the brain works and how we're living there, now the neocortex of the brain works, and how we want to resource from this more frequently so that we fill the well. All right. I love you. Thank you. Love you, Jody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in Pilgrim if you're joining us on Monday. And yoga church is tomorrow if you want to join us for yoga. That's an option too. You can find all that at brittbsteele.com. Pilgrim is brittbsteele.com/pilgrim. Can't miss it. And you'll see yoga church at the top as well. Big love to you. Keep following, keep showing up, and big love. All right. Bye for now.